Do you need a card that's easy to make, can be dressed up for those special occasions, and uses scraps? Of course you do. Let me show you how. Let's get crafting. This is such a simple project that any scraps will do. You could use solid papers, papers that you've inked, that's done with Brilliance ink. This is just some blending, or even pattern paper. You do need some liquid glue. I've got a couple different kinds here, and you need a paper trimmer. For my first example, I've chosen 3 solid color cards. One's blue, one's green, and one's purple. And I'm going to go ahead and cut those down to 1¼ inch strips. If you don't have colored cardstock, you could certainly make your own with your inks, or you could use pattern paper. You're going to see some examples later on that have lots of different choices. Now, if you don't have any of those, this would certainly work with white cardstock as well. White on white makes a beautiful card. It would be a great sympathy card. But for this one, I was going for fun and lively. Now I do need to square this up, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this out as well. You don't need a whole lot. These are really far too large for this, but I did make quite a few cards, so I use it later on. And then I'm using a piece of white cardstock. This needs to be cut down to 4 inches by 5¼ inch. Now with your strips, remember you have 3 different colors. You want to cut squares. So you're going to cut 2 squares from each color, so 1¼ inches by 1¼ inches. Now I think in this video you're going to actually see me cut more than that, but that's because I'm making multiple cards. So you could really go to town with this project. It would be good for batch making as well. But I finally realized that I'm cutting it the wrong direction. I was trying to let you see the 1¼ inches, but I'm right-handed and I pushed the paper with my left, so it needed to go the other direction for ease of cutting. Okay, so I've decided on the order that I'm going to be gluing these down. I'm going to glue green, blue, purple. I'm matching one corner of my square to the short side of my card panel and the other corner of the square to the long side of the panel. And I'm kind of just wiggling it along. Liquid glue is absolutely the way to go here because it affords you that wiggle room. And as you're going to see, I'm going to pull this up and reposition it. I do need to add more glue, but that's okay. I did swap off and use a Hero Arts glue this go around as opposed to my Barely Arts. And the reason that I did that was because I've got it in my stash. I may as well use it. I don't want it to go bad, so it's not my glue of choice, but it works perfectly fine. Now, word to the wise, I messed this up, and that's okay because I'm going to show you how to fix it too. I've glued my blue square down, and now I'm going to go ahead and glue my purple square. Now they're lining up fairly easily, but what happens when they don't line up? And I've done that multiple times this go around, so I've got a pretty easy fix for it. And we're just going to continue on until we get to no more space on the card. The design at this point should pretty much look like a W, but we're going to finish that off with the second purple square. And there's 2 ways to do this. You can either use a pair of scissors to cut it, or you can use a paper trimmer, whichever is easier for you. But I'm going to go ahead and cut that triangle, cutting my square from one corner down to the other. Now, because I've chosen to use a paper trimmer, I am using the guide wire inside to line up my corners. And then I'm using a piece of repositionable mint tape to hold it down so it doesn't slip when I go ahead and cut it. And now I'm just going to match up the long flat side of the triangle to the short side of the cardstock. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side to finish off the pattern. Now this would make a great masculine card. Change up the colors, super simple. Now, the design came out a little off, but I'm going to show you another way to kind of ensure that your triangle patterns line up. So this time I'm going to go ahead and use my scissors. This is probably the easier way to go if you trust yourself. And I'm using the Tim Holtz long bladed 9-inch scissors, I believe that they are. Using one of those triangles, I'm going to line up the long part of the triangle to the long part of the paper, and I'm going to match up the corner of the triangle to the other side of the cardstock. You'll see what I mean. I know it's a little hard to understand, but I'm just going to hold it down with some mint tape so that it doesn't move around when I'm gluing things. And this side I'm just going to go ahead and glue down as well. It holds the cardstock well enough. And I'm going to go ahead and start this process all over again. I've got my green square and I'm going to line it up. After I add my glue, I'm going to go ahead and line it up to the flat edge of that triangle. And then once that first piece is down, the rest is the exact same way as before. Now you see that the two points of the square line up to the sides of the card. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit because it is identical. Now I quite like using the triangle to get my pattern started, but you don't have to. If you've got a great eye and can line it up, more power to you. I just find that when I do it, the triangle works better for me, but I definitely have a vision issue, so I'm not terribly surprised. But it comes out great either way. Now you'll see that I made some glue marks. Don't let it bother you. Keep going because I'm going to fix that too. Okay, so this is the second card, which came out correctly using the little triangles in the corner to line everything up. And I'm going to go ahead and finish this up with a really big, bold happy birthday sentiment. This one is from Simon Says Stamps, and it's called Birthday Sentiments. And it's a great little stamp set. I'm using my stamp positioner, so if you have a MISTI, that will work perfectly fine. This one is no longer available, I think, at all worldwide. This is from Stampin' Up. It is called a Stamparatus, and well, it's been discontinued. So I happen to have it, and like everything else, I'm just going to continue to use it until it no longer works. But if you have stamp blocks that you can put down your sentiment and you're good enough with it, go right ahead with that, or use whichever stamp positioner you have. Now I love this happy birthday sentiment. It is bold. It's just a really great sentiment, and I'm not affiliated with Simon Says Stamp at all. If I can create a link, I'm not sure if I can. I'll try to put that in the description box below, but nevertheless, I will link all of the supplies that I can find that I used today in the description box below. So now I'm going to go ahead and line this up on my card base. This is a 100-pound accent opaque card base, and I've decided that since I added VersaFine Black Onyx ink for my sentiment, I'm going to go ahead and add a black panel as well to bring that color into the mix. And it is a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch. It is a little bit cut off, but once again, I don't worry about those teeny tiny little 1/8 or 16ths of an inch. I'm just going to cut it off. No big deal. In order to correct that first panel that was put down, I just cut it off the panel. And now I'm going to step it up a notch, and I'm going to use an embossing folder to emboss that entire piece. This is an embossing folder by Simon Hurley and Spellbinders called Quilt, and it adds just the amount of texture that I'm looking for. Here I've got a brand new 4-inch by 5 1/4 inch panel, and now it's going to line up perfectly. So I just had a thought. If you have a lineup problem, well, you can create it on a piece of copy paper, cut it off, and line it up as one whole piece if that's easier for you yet. So there's so many ways to do the exact same thing. At this point, all you need to do is add your glue. Go ahead and pop it down onto your panel and add your sentiment of choice before adding it to your card base. In this case, I have selected a sentiment that comes from one of my own sentiment printable bundles that I have available for purchase on my PayHip digital store. So I will leave that linked in the bottom as well. That is a phenomenal deal. And this one says another year of wonderful you, but there are so many sentiments in that set, and you can print them out and use them hundreds of times and get a lot of bang for your buck. Moving on to a different colorway, I've created a top folding card for this one, and I used green, yellow, and green glitter paper. I added a cupcake and a sentiment from Hero Art Stamp Set. Remember the splotch of glue? All I did was cover it with this adorable little skunk. And that finished off that card. Here's our simple happy birthday. This one's fantastic. For each color, I chose a different embossing folder and then put them together. So I get 3 different textures with 3 different colors. What about using pattern paper? These are Christmas pattern papers that all have a green theme, and then I added this Season's Greeting sentiment. Now this is a brand new Christmas and winter holiday printable sentiment collection. Now I am so excited to bring this to you. It is 5 beautiful pages of gorgeous sentiments. The circles can be used with a punch or a circle die cutter, but they're certainly easy enough to cut out with scissors, as are the Season's Greeting banners there. I have got 32 different sentiments, but if you print out all 5 pages, you're going to get 79 sentiments total to include Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, and New Year's. This is priced at such a great price, and best of all, you don't need anything fancy, just a paper trimmer or your scissors to cut out those sentiments. I've created one more card where I have used Christmas pattern papers and this Sizzix die set. This is called Seasonal Vault. Seasonal Sketch. I'll get it right. And I finished that off with holly berries and some metallic paper and my Have a Holly Jolly Holiday sentiment for my brand new sentiment printable bundle. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving me a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. In the meantime, check out a couple of these other videos that I've picked out just for you. Until next time, I'll see you real soon.